Dateline Washington, Friday, 18 July. So which story this week was so bad for the Biden-Obama gang that they saved it for Friday and dumped the Trump-Russia hoax thing onto Thursday? Well, at the risk of telling you fine people more things you already know, because you weren't fucking born yesterday, documents obtained this week by America First Legal through a Freedom of Information request indicate in no uncertain terms that, yup, President Joe Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland consciously and intentionally abused the limits of federal jurisdiction in order to criminally investigate and to charge concerned parents who spoke up in local school board meetings against the administration's draconian policies on China virus restrictions, child transgenderism, critical race theory, and other such things. To put it a different way, you remember how that dad in Loudoun County, Virginia, got gang-tackled by a dozen cops and bundled off to jail and charged as a domestic terrorist for trying to get up and ask what the district was going to do about his daughter getting raped in the girls' restroom by a transgender-identifying male student? That was no accident. Those instructions came directly from the White House. That's the way Biden and Garland wanted all dissenters to be dealt with. But wait, I hear you say. What possible jurisdiction does the federal government have over anything that takes place in a local school board meeting? Well, that doesn't matter. What matters is, if you speak out against Joe Biden's policies, you should look forward to being hogtied and thrown into solitary and treated as a domestic terrorist. And you know who was most horrified about the whole thing? The lawyers in the Department of Justice, who were tasked with inventing a legal justification for this shockingly unprecedented use of federal government power to crush and destroy innocent Americans who maybe don't want to sacrifice their daughters on the altar of child transgenderism. An internal DOJ email obtained by AFL from one concerned lawyer to some of his other colleagues reads as follows, quote, I read the letter from NSBA, the National School Board Association, and looked at the provided links for a handful of footnotes, and it appears to me that the vast majority of the behavior cited cannot be reached by federal law. I only saw 3 stories that involved what maybe sounded like a possible true threat. Almost all the language used is protected by the First Amendment. The main issue seems to be the disruption and obstruction of the school board meetings, which can be reached by local trespassing laws or disturbance of the peace laws, but nothing remotely federal. End quote. So it seems we are ramping up an awful lot of federal manpower for what is currently non-federal conduct. So they wanted to forcibly crush dissent. They wanted to do that very badly. They wanted to make a criminal out of anybody who dared oppose them. And they instructed the DOJ lawyers to reverse engineer some justification, any justification, for doing it. Is that supposed to be how the rule of law works? Nah, pretty sure it's not. I'm just glad these guys have such a deep and abiding regard for those institutional norms they're always telling us about. For I shudder to think what it would look like if they just didn't give a shit. And with that, another roundup comes to an end, and I now transmit you into the loving hands of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, a man you will never see dressed as a dancing syringe, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.